Welcome to the Carolina Movement Winning by Sending podcast, where Carolina Movement wants to help see a movement of church planting across the great state of North Carolina. At Carolina Movement, we believe that every church is a church planting church because at one point, at one time, every church was a church plant. So let's continue the mission. And today we're going to talk about sending and winning by sending with Pastor Andrew Hopper. Pastor Hopper is the pastor of Mercy Hill Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. Andrew also helped lead two incredible organizations. Number one, the Mercy Hill Collab, which is a church planting network in the greater North Carolina region in conjunction with the Summit Network, and also Breaking Barriers. Breaking Barriers is a movement, a podcast, a conference, and a general brotherhood about people learning how to busting through growth barriers so that they can see the Great Commission accomplished throughout here, near, and far. So thank you, Andrew, for joining us today. So again, I want to thank Andrew for being here. Hey, Andrew, like I said, I've already done an intro for this podcast. Give us a little bit about who you are, how you came to plant Mercy Hill Church, and some of the things that are still going on inside that church that's not necessarily a plant anymore, but still very much operates with a church planting mindset.
We try to have that mindset. Yeah, thanks, Corey. 2012, we had 30 people move from Raleigh-Durham over to Greensboro. That was on the back of 5 years of being at the Summit Church in Raleigh-Durham and really being equipped through Southeastern Seminary. So, and the Summit, obviously. So we, I was moved to seminary like a lot of guys. Thought, man, I'm gonna go get a job in a church. I felt called to ministry. First time somebody said something to me about church planting, I said, "Oh no, man! I came to seminary to get a job at a real church." That was what I said. So obviously, I had very little. I didn't really understand a lot of that world, but praise God, I learned a lot about it. Got to be raised at the Summit in a really cool time where church planting was becoming. I hate to say in vogue, but that is just what it was. It was kind of that 2006 to 2012 sort of era right there. And I'm really grateful for that, man. We had so many resources through Acts 29, through North Carolina Baptist, through Fellowship Associates. I mean, there was just a lot popping off during that time in church planting. And so, man, we caught a heart for it. We caught the bug. And we left, like I said, in 2012. We had 30 people. I was 28 years old. We were probably, me and my wife, the most seasoned in just terms of life. Like we had kids, and we had both of us worked full time, and a lot of our team was young adults. They were college students. Launched our church in 2012 at night at Burr Mill Park in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is very out of the way. And God just began to do a work, man. We slugged it out for a year and a half at night, and I ended up moving to 2 services. And we never had that huge, we never had that moment of just like explosive, but it really was like, it felt like the book of Acts, man. God was just adding to our number month in, month out. And a lot of college students. We were baptizing people outside the parking lot a lot. I mean, just that, it was really fun, man, really cool. And then we moved in, we moved to the morning services, and we upfitted a space. And so on our second birthday, man, by God's grace, we broke 1,000 in attendance, and
Wow.
It was just sort of nuts, man. I have a lot of joys from that. I have a lot of scars from that, being that young and something moving that fast, and just.
I always heard that church planting is like a tale of two cities. It's the best of times and the worst of times. How did you go?
That's really true.
What happened at Summit? Because you're at Summit. Summit at this point in time is a pretty substantial church. You have a good role there. You've achieved what you had in seminary. So what happened in Summit that made you say, I don't just want to be a part of this, I actually want to experience it?
So, man, great way to phrase that. I mean, that you're really right. Like a lot of people dump on campus pastor role. I was a campus pastor. I really liked it. Like it was really fun. Man, it's almost like you kind of get to do a lot of the fun parts of ministry without maybe carrying like the weight of the whole thing. Cause it's like, man, you're not the one preaching every week. So, it was
worrying about the finances and the HR and everything.
I loved the role. I was very clear with Pastor JD. I'm like, man, I feel like I could do this for a long time. I mean, but it was yeah, I really felt a call to preach more regularly and lead, and I just had that bug, man. I took a lot of church planting things. I did not come out as an apostolic type church planter. I came out more as a founding pastor, and that's so. We really looked at that time. You remember this, Corey? Like 2010, 11. Like if it was mega urban or bust. If you ain't talking about San Francisco, don't even worry about it. And that was greatly discouraging to me, 'cause, like you, I think too. Like I was like, man,
especially in NAM worlds. I mean, that was the big cities were the things.
and I don't necessarily disagree with all that stuff. I don't disagree with it that came out of all the Keller and city to city and stuff. But I just was like, dude, I'm not wired for that. I'm not wired for some big mega city. And so the summit was really cool about, well, let's look at North Carolina. And so we went all around, man. We looked at Charlotte, Asheville, Fayetteville. We landed on the Triad. We felt like the Triad's kind of the third region of North Carolina, if you think about it like that. Like it's sort of the
center of the state.
Yeah,
got just as much vibe as Charlotte and the Raleigh area for sure.
So we just really liked it here, and we really felt like if God granted our church growth, we felt like this would be a really great area to multi-site out of, and then eventually plant a lot of churches out of. So
let's dig in right there. How do you go from a guy who's seminary, who's like, yeah, I mean, I would believe in church planting because obviously it's a good thing to do, working at Summit Church. Now you just released Nico Williams in Greenhouse Church, just put them on stage, sent out 40, 50 people. You're talking about other ones. Like, how do you go from a guy who says, yeah, that's a good idea, to now one of the biggest champions in North Carolina? Like, that's a big deal.
It's a great observation too. I mean, I think it's when you got to figure out if you really believe that we're called to like a two-pronged kind of mission. So one mission is local where you're at, and we see that as growth and multi-site and whatever, man. We're trying to reach people here. We're trying to reach people in our neighborhood schools. There's a second part to the mission, and this is where we go into all the world. And then once you've accepted that going into all the world and preaching the gospel among all nations is that is to be done as it goes on the backs of church plants. If you accept that as a premise, not everybody does, but if you accept that as a premise, then suddenly your scorecard has to have two major categories. It's not like one crushes the other. You don't say, well, hey, we're in multiplication now, so we don't give a crap about growth, or we don't say, well, man, we're just going to be local, so we don't care about missions. It's like, no, the scorecard is two-pronged. And I think personally, while I may not have said it exactly like that, Corey, I think that's what I became convinced of. The way I used to say it was, yeah, I really believe church planting is God's plan A for the world, and there's not a plan B. And so if I can leverage my life for that part where we grow something and then plant others, one is for the next 30, one's the starfish, one's the spider. The spider is for the next 30 years. That's the church. The starfish is the movement. It's man, we're wanting to see these things released for the next 300 years. Once I became convinced of that, it was a kind of a no-brainer to think about leveraging my life for that.
Well, that seems to me like a perfect lead into breaking barriers, because from my understanding, you could please correct me in any way that you choose to, but like I've heard breaking barriers, like we are unapologetic about growing so that we can go.
Yes.
So what I've heard you say over and over, I am not going to not beat the drum of getting new butts in these seats, getting them baptized, getting them into a group, getting them to go somewhere to a new campus, then getting them to go across the world. So I don't think that people really understand the heart behind what you do. Can you unpack how you went from that two-pronged approach and how that maybe led you, if it did, into the Breaking Barriers community?
Well, I think that I started realizing a few years ago, if someone said, hey, what is the number one reason you guys have been able to multiply? It's because we were able to add. Like that stream of addition is what create. Now, you can, and this is what we say, breaking barriers. You can grow without going. We see that all the time. Like churches grow big fat churches that don't want to go and do anything. Don't want to do mission in terms of sending. So you can grow without going. But the flip side of that is really true too. You really can't go without growing. It's like if you're gonna multiply at a clip once a year, once every 3 years, if we're always trying to raise up missionaries and church planners, they come from the harvest. And so I think what we have found, and I do think this is changing, man. I think it's not just us. There's a lot of voices around this right now. I do think breaking barriers is a lead voice in our state with it right now, but it's like some kind of way the multiplication piece got so important and big, which it needed to be highlighted, that it kind of started making church growth discussions get demonized. And that was the part, like when you would go to a conference, it was always, let's plant, let's multiply, let's do one-on-one discipleship, let's do one-on-one evangelism. It was all this stuff that was more traditionally associated with sending, which is not bad. But the problem is if you're not having the other discussion as well, what you end up doing is you end up sharing with a ton of people. You need to multiply, you need to multiply, you need to multiply without telling them, hey, but first you need to be growing. And so then you end up like, I can't tell you how many rooms I've been in, Corey, where it's like, hey, the conversation in the room was about multiplication, and it absolutely should have been about addition. Because it's like, hey, man, they're not going to be able to do what you're talking about if they haven't had any first-time guests in the last 3 months. It just don't matter. Like you can talk about if you take one thing and make it into two, but they don't grow, that's division. That ain't multiplication.
So do me a favor, break your flywheel up, because 1,000% agree. Like if you don't have, in the church planning world, I've been with NC Baptist Carolina Movement since 2015. So I've been talking church planning for the last 10 years plus. Yeah. The one thing I continuously hear over and over again is there's a lack of anything coming in. Like we need more planters. We need more planters. The only way to get more planters is what you're talking about right here. So unpack your flywheel, kind of maybe the basic framework that you guys teach through Breaking Barriers.
Totally. Well, the way it works, Corey, is that going is the lag measure, growing is the lead measure.
Help unpack for someone who may not know what the lead measure is.
So the idea is that if we're going to end up seeing multiplication, it's going to be because we first see addition. So for us at Mercy Hill, what we say is gather, groups, give, go. I mean, that's kind of like how we disciple people at Mercy Hill. We're like, man, we're going to gather the saints. I think that's one distinctive of Breaking Barriers is like, man, we really believe when you read the book of Acts, almost everybody you read about in the book of Acts gets saved when there's a preacher in a crowd. So I love one-on-one evangelism, man. The woman at the well and, the Philippian jailer is an awesome story. And we need a champion.
I have heard you beat this drum a number of times. Have you caught any flack for that? Like just unapologetically saying, like, I believe in the gathering of saints on Sunday morning to preach the gospel so that people can hear, respond, and then go and be sent.
A little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. I mean, I think anti-institutional deconstructionist guys don't love it. If they're super missional, that I guess you would say, or super. And, they kind of view like, man, we need to deconstruct that big gathering. That's not the focal point. And I'm not saying it's got to be a gathering. I'm just making an observation. In the book of Acts, when I read it, almost everybody you see that gets saved in terms of number, there was a preacher in a crowd. So for us, a lot of times that's our Sunday morning gathering. Not all the time, but first, a lot of times it is. I love one-on-one evangelism. People can get saved that way. It's not more exciting for them to get saved that way than it is if they get saved in a crowd. And by percentage, one of them, we've done like, I feel like for a while, it was like 99% of all of our evangelism discussions centered around what actually ends up being 1% of the instances. And that's just odd. It's like, man, you kind of want to flip that. So we believe the gathering, man, move people into groups, see them get excited about generosity giving, and then going out on mission. Now that is sort of our way that we disciple people. It's the way we believe our church grows. But when you're, for what you're talking about, it's just sometimes I think we just confuse a lead measure and a lag measure. A lag measure is the output. That's what happens. The lead measure is sort of what you did. And so, the lag measure is I want to be able to run a marathon. Well, if you ran it, that's a lag. The lead measure is, dude, I did 20 miles, I did 100 miles a week for, walking or running for 6 months. And so what we've tried to do at Breaking Barriers is say, hey, multiplication is the lag measure. That's what we're all trying to get to. We want to see churches planted. We want to see missionaries sent. But that is not actually the lead measure. It's the lag measure. The lead measure is how many people came to your church for the first time in the last month? How many website views do you have? Do you understand parking lot dynamics versus like butts in the seats dynamics, things like, so it's a lot of the practical things without taking your eye off of the ball for the for the multiplication things. I think that's a good way to think about what we're trying to do with breaking barriers. We're trying to free churches up that want to think about it like that and not feel bad about it.
Hey, just a 2 minute, like maybe even less, but I am convinced, that people paying attention to the number of new people walking through their doors has got to be one of the most important thing. What would you tell to any pastor, any size, who may be pushing back on the idea of pragmatism versus spirit-led
Yeah.
and like counting and all these things?
Well, I think we're all pragmatists. We just don't all decide to do it well. So I don't really know why.
As Michael Scott would say, "Boom, roasted." That's what Michael Scott would say.
We are. I mean, there's no way to get around it. We're all pragmatists. If you've ever branded a sermon series, if you have ever decided to gather a bunch of students for a student camp, if you've ever done a sports evangelism thing in the summer,
A budget.
If you have a budget, if you have a website, if you're part of a 501c3,
a logo,
it's all pragmatism. There's nothing in the Bible that tells us to do that. So I don't care. You could be the most 9 marks guy in the world. You are a pragmatist. We all are. Now, some of us want to do it really well. And we just say, hey, man, we feel like all things to the glory of God means the Bible is not the only resource we have for leadership. In the same way that I don't pick up a Bible and say it's the only book I'm ever going to read for farming. So that, yes, in terms of faith and practice in our life, like we have the scripture, but in terms of organizational leadership, I think that there's a lot that in terms of, like you're saying, logos and momentum, and there's just a lot of resources that we have. And I think like for us, we try to have more of a holistic view of trying to use all these tools for the kingdom. And the truth is everybody does that. It's just some people kind of don't really talk about it, and then and other guys are willing to say, "Hey, man, let's just do it. Let's do it really well." And we feel like it's really important, because the counting, throughout the scripture, they count. We see counting all the time. I mean, there's the Bible easily could have not shown us the amount of disciples that were made in the book of Acts, right? Like, to me, some of the stuff breaks down so easily. Like, we should celebrate it. We should be excited about it. It's all in His hands. We can't manufacture it, but we celebrate what God is doing. And I think some guys, it's funny to me though, Corey, like they'll celebrate sending numbers, but they won't celebrate growing numbers. And that's odd, because it's like, hey, one produces the other. So you've heard me say this before, but at the 10-year mark at Mercy Hill, we realized we had 15,000. No, I'll go the other way. We had seen 150 missionaries sent 2 years or more, right? We had baptized 1,500 people. This is a 10-year mark. And guess how many first-time guests we had seen? 15,000. I knew it was going to be something like that. And so we understood there's a correlated relationship between all this stuff, If you want to see a baptism, if you want to see a missionary, you need to baptize 10 people. If you want to baptize somebody, you need to see 10 people walk through the door for the first time. If you want to go and see someone go to the mission field, you need to see 100 first-time guests walk through the door for the first time and have an intentional process for all that. Once we began to realize that, it was like, man, no holds barred. I'm going to go after lag measures. I'm going to go after lead measures like crazy.
My mind's going on. I'm reading through the book of Luke right now, and the section where Jesus says, "Why do you not, you look at the seasons and understand the times of when to plant and when to reap? How in the world do you not understand the seasons that the Savior is right in front of you?" And that's all I hear you saying is hey, we're just taking the data that's available and maximizing it so that we can see kingdom growth.
Yeah, and I think one of the guys that used to be a triad guy for one of the old Baptist kind of iterations of some of the things that we do. I can't remember what the name of it now was. It's been like 10 years ago. But it was, gathering guys and all that. He said something to me one time that I thought was so good, because what he said, this to me holds attention really well. He said, God can do whatever He wants, which is obviously true. But he said, man, I think it's wise to look at what He is doing right now. So when I use those numbers, I'm like, dude, that could change tomorrow dramatically. God could do whatever He wants to do. But as a leader, it feels incumbent upon me to say, well, it feels like this is what God's doing now. This feels like something like this. So that's going to inform my strategy.
Yeah, nobody's going to go get a building for 100 people if they have 1,000.
Yeah. It's, I mean, that's pragmatic.
Right. Hey, so give me like I wanna hear what year Breaking Barriers was started, but like before you even do that, like tell me a couple stories because I know you guys run these cohorts and you have a podcast and you have a Facebook group page, you have a
Yeah.
conference.
Yep.
Before you get to some of those things, like are there two stories that you could tell about some churches that have been participating with you guys and some of the things that have been seen through that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of my favorite stories was a church by on the coast that was more of a traditional, 200-year-old Southern Baptist kind of church. And, man, they had a young dynamic leader and they were experiencing growth. And it was time for them to really consider going to two services. And the lead pastor very excited about it. The deacons kind of voted it down, and they didn't want to do that. They thought, man, there's all the stuff. It's like, hey, well, we
We
want
don't
everybody
want two churches. We want everybody to
right.
be in the same service. Yeah.
And it's so funny too because all the stuff breaks down so easily. Like everybody's like, well, we want everybody to be able to participate. It's like, really? What about the people keeping the kids? Did they get to do communion this week with their husband or not? It's like when you got one service, that's actually not letting people all participate. So anyway, they were kind of that mindset, and they had he got a chance to let them hear our Breaking Barriers podcast on two services and all that stuff, and they ended up changing their mind, and they ended up saying like, dude, we think this is really good, and they moved to two services, and ended up seeing a ton of growth. Corey, you still there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Can you all see
sorry.
me?
On my screen.
Yeah. Everything looks good.
Hey, the second, go ahead.
No, everything looks good on mine.
Yeah, the second story I think would be on the other end of things, not a small traditional kind of church that's looking to take their next step. It's actually a pretty large church in terms of just what's normative, but they had never really taken that seriously, the idea of big days. And so, we had a chance to help multiple churches like this. But the one I'm thinking of was in Yadkinville, and just really had a chance to help them kind of use some pragmatic tools to say, hey, actually, you're wanting to do 3 services, but you need like 5. Because this is what all the data is kind of pointing to is like your church is trying to grow, and yet you're putting a lid on it, and it just kind of works out. Like if you're not going to have the services, and we view that as very theological. Like we think, man, if you don't prepare the jars, why would God fill them? So, we want to be ready for what God is going to do. And man, they ended up having a bunch of services, and
I can fill you in on the other side from that pastor's.
Yeah.
Because I know that pastor. His name is Nick Poindexter, and he actually works with Carolina Movement. And when I was talking to him, because I knew that he was in the Breaking Barriers and the other cohort, we're in the Hope Church cohort. And he was like, bro, I don't think we can do that. Like, that just sounds crazy. Crazy. We were both like that. We were both being pushed to do more than we ever thought we could do. And we did. And
what God did?
God filled the jars. God filled the jars. We hit 750 that weekend, and he hit 1500.
What were y'all like the year before that, Corey?
540 a year from a year ago.
That's so cool, man.
So 750, 4 services.
I just get fired up with stuff like that, and it's like it takes faith. It's hard. You're right, dude. It's scary, man. What if we do all these services, nobody comes? It's like, but they did it, and I think our cohorts are really designed. Yeah, there's a lot of practical tools, but it's also designed to be like, man, let's take chances here, and let's try to be very edgy side of wise, is what we say.
So what is Breaking Barriers? How do people participate? Like, just give me the 411 there.
So, drilled into me my whole life, to whom much is given, much is required, from, obviously from Jesus. Man, as our church begins to grow and go, we really feel like we wanted to see that go forward. Also wanted to have, a voice, give a voice to some churches that maybe were feeling like growth was not a bad thing, that they really wanted to go after it and multiply. Breaking Barriers was birthed a couple of years ago. It's primarily a teaching and equipping arm. It is not a network. Man, we're not doing things together like planting churches, or that's not kind of what it is. It is an equipping arm, and it's a training arm. Now, there is some network stuff that goes beyond that in the Mercy Hill Collaborative, which that is a network. And a lot of the guys that come through Breaking Barriers stuff are interested in that because they want to lock arms with guys that are similar. They want to church plant the same way. They don't want to be sheepish about growth. They want to be crazy about going. They want to be practical. So that's kind of a tribe, I guess. But actually, Breaking Barriers, man, is just a free resource that is primarily three things. Number one is we release a podcast every single Monday that is just all about this stuff, pragmatics around going and growing. The second thing is we have a private Facebook group where people can get on and kind of ask questions, blast away. It's becoming a really cool community of where you are in there and you're like, man, I don't know. In other environments, I don't want to ask this because it's going to be like, oh gosh, he's the growth guy or whatever. And people can ask, and we can talk about real practical things. And then the third thing is we have events. So every quarter we put on a free event. This last event was all around church mergers. The event before that was we brought in Rich Birch, who's just like a total expert on church social media dynamics, stuff like that. We brought him in to talk about marketing in churches. So, Mercy Hill.
You did one for worship. You did one for worship teams. You've done it.
Yeah. So, I mean, our church sees it as a ministry from our church. So we just kind of foot the bill and just say, hey, man, we want churches to benefit from this stuff. And we want to, dude, Corey, I don't know about you, man. Your church is growing, obviously. Mercy Hill's growing. A lot of guys listening to this they want it. We have lived in just this, my whole ministry life has been like everything. There's so much desert around us. Everything feels like it's moving backwards. Not the church I was in, my church, like the Summit or Mercy Hill, but like every 80% is plateau and declining. I'm just like, dude, I want to live I want to see God do something the other way, where we start living where the wind's at our back. I don't know if we will, but man, we're trying to do everything we can do,
It feels like there's a precipice, sir. It feels like there's a precipice. Yeah. I mean, Andrew, I don't know if you know, if I told, so we started 3 services at Sojo in March, and over the course of the next 18 weeks, we saw every single week consistently somebody getting that water. I think we baptized 76 people over those 18 weeks, bro.
Wow.
And that was come from filling the jars. That came
That's
from
movement, man. That's movement.
It was
That's
crazy, and it's all young people. So, as you think about, you talk about Mercy Hill Collab, you talk about Breaking Barriers. Yeah. Please mention your conference, though, that you guys got coming up in October. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the other part of that was in that third bucket, the events bucket. We do the 1 days, but then once a year we do a conference. We bring everybody together, whoever wants to. Man, we subsidize the conference heavily. I think it's pretty cheap, $100, something like that. And it's good, man. It's good content. 2 days full of good content, getting around guys that want to blow it out.
Who's it for? Who's the avatar?
I would say it's for any. It's churches and teams, so lead pastors and teams that are wanting to get unstuck. Man, they are unapologetically say, man, we want to grow and we want to send, and that's kind of our thing, is growing and going. And so it'll be a lot of practical things.
What's the website?
If you go to breakinggrowthbarriers.com, that's all things Breaking Barriers. And
so I'll say from we attended the conference last year. Our team did. We loved it. Yeah, we bought hook, line, and sinker into the prepare the jars mentality. I've seen some incredible things. We've listened to the podcast as a team. We've gone to the 1 days. Breaking Barriers is a gift to this state for any church, any pastor, any leaders who are looking to see more movement. What he's talking about. Are you tired of seeing things going backwards? Here's something that you can trust, that's reliable, that's theologically correct, and also action-oriented towards that movement. So please check Breaking Barriers out, breakinggrowthbarriers.com. Please do it. It's a gift to this state and beyond. So,
man, I appreciate you saying that, Corey, because that is our heart, man.
Well, it comes from firsthand experience. It's not just me saying it because we're on a podcast. I'm living proof. Our church is living proof, and I think our state's better, which leads me to the next question, which is, how do you see things coming together, whether it's Carolina Movement, Breaking Growth Barriers, Mercy Hill Collab, Summit Collab, Acts 29, all these different things going on in our state. What do you see happen? What do you see God doing in our state when it comes to church planting?
It feels, man, to me, I like your word precipice. I absolutely feel what you're saying. Feels like we're in kind of a little bit of a spiritual awakening right now. Um, Man, it just feels like churches are growing kind of all over the place, and I hope that'll turn into going all over the place. Um, but yeah, I think it's great, man. I think, and everybody's got their own flavor. Like I know you guys do stuff here, and I know some of the guys for Carolina Movement here, awesome guys. Man, I've been to some of the stuff, incredible content. I don't know, man. It feels like we're living in an environment right now where, I mean, when you and I planted churches, and even really the generation before us, big time, there was just not a lot out there for them. And now I just think that's a lot different. Like if you want it, there's now multiple places you can go get it, whether it be convention, you guys, stuff with the collab, stuff with Breaking Barriers. So, I think it's great, man. And from my seat, it feels to me like there's like a great spirit of unity, man, that it's like there's not a lot of territorialism right now with at least with the movements that you've mentioned. It feels like we're all just like, dude, let's freaking go, man.
When we can partner together and layer even our secondary, tertiary things and still help planters get off and plant churches so that they can see lost people saved, that's a good day.
Yeah.
Man, I want to let you know, like, you're invited to speak at our conference in October. And, one thing we've done this content and just hearing your heart, I just want to say to you, like, I appreciate sincerely, like, your boldness, the way that you are in many ways unapologetic about what you feel, what you believe, and your willingness to speak it. I can tell you that you have given me permission personally as a pastor, not just a movement leader, to be a whole lot bolder and also to not be apologetic about growing, seeing people get saved, seeing them get sent to the mission field. And so I just want to thank you for the gift that you are, and excited for you to bring that bold conviction, because I know you have it, about the local church, our state, planting churches, and really, really, really the heart behind breaking growth barriers, which is that we want to see people be sent, but we can't see people get sent if they're not first saved, and they can't get first saved if somebody don't tell them the gospel. And so can't have one without the other. So just thank you for being on here today, and thank you for what you're doing in the state, and appreciate you locking arms with
Great, man. Can't wait for the conference, Corey. Thanks, guys.
Great,